slowly rolling into it, and off of corner number 4. It's showtime at Skagit Speedway. Final corners, final time. Peck way wide. Smith just no lane to get by, and Alex Peck rolls to the win. It's showtime!
One car with the front of it that was junk, and another car with the back of it was junk. So I cut both of them in half, took the good part of one car and the good part of the other car, and welded them together.
The reason why I decided to, move to Sean's number and use it was just because the memory of Sean was V8, and I just kind of lived for racing and racing with his number just to remember him by.
Racing, and next thing you know, she's on the flag stand running the, doing flag, and all my quarterback. I'm like, where did you come from?
You definitely have to want it. You can't just say you want it. You got to want it. You got to have that desire that drives you.
I hope they just soak it all in, because you don't know when it could be over.
One story, and that is, I was in the stands and I was sitting down, and there were some older people sitting next to us, and I just looked at the track and I said, "This is absolutely gorgeous. This is a beautiful facility." He says, "You think so?" And I said, "It is." And he says, "My name is Jim Raver."
Give Master Gassers a follow on Twitter and on Facebook. He kind of coined a Skagit Speedway nightcap.
But he would come down and stick his head in the cockpit just before Bob went out and say, "No pressure, just win."
Well, welcome into episode 21 of On the Gas, a Skagit Speedway podcast. Erik List back with you. No Blake Anderson this week. He's out of town. So, just myself, but we're going to be joined by Alex Peck this week. Excited still for a good conversation. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Erik. Thanks for the opportunity. Happy to do this.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. It's going to be a fun conversation. And let's just start first with the 2025 season wrapped up. You finished 4th in points at Skagit Speedway. You had a win. Never missed the top 5 in 7 features. You did miss a night, I believe. I don't fully remember what night that was, but still a really solid overall year for you at Skagit Speedway. How do you recap 2025?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So, last year we had a strong season with we were points racing for Elma, Skagit, and the series. It travels around to different tracks and whatnot, and we were able to get 3 championships in 1 year, which is a proud feat. And then 2025 was a different approach. So yeah, the first race that you mentioned we missed was the first Skagit race. I think it was May 30th. So it was Memorial Day weekend. I had some prior obligations, but I felt like we had accomplished most of the things that we set out to the previous year, and so this year was looking a little bit different for me already, with kind of splitting 2 part-time rides. So we decided not to really focus on points racing and just kind of go out and have fun, pick and choose our races, on a month-to-month basis, and try to just achieve results. We had a lot of really good consistency at Skagit this year. So yeah, racing all but 1, like you mentioned, I think, never missing a top 5. I think I spoke to you, way too many times in the second place podium position this year. But, I think consistency is how I'd probably define our Skagit season this year.
Yeah, I felt bad for you the number of times you and I chatted in that second place, and you're like, man, a couple different things, and we'd be standing one spot, to the left on the podium. But you mentioned kind of running 2 different rides. You ran the Pyles Motorsport, but you also ran with
Mark and Jolene Steen.
Yes, the Inlaws Racing. What was the reason for kind of doing 2 part-time rides this year?
Yeah, so Riley and Richard Pyles, they were the ones that first gave me an opportunity to race dirt, period, back in 2019. We already had a good relationship, and we had ran for points racing pretty much every year that we had ran together. And so I think they were looking for a change. They made, they're kind of hinting at maybe we're not going to run all track schedules and the series schedule this year. So that kind of opened me up to fill in some weekends. Coincidentally at the same time, Mark and Jolene had reached out to me as their, very successful shoe. Jared Peterson was taking a step back from midget racing. So they were looking to have their seat filled for Deming and Skagit races potentially. And so kind of worked out. Mark and Jolene are on the north side of Seattle, and Riley and his dad Richard on the south side. So, maybe we're looking at Alma races and Oregon races with the Pyles car, and kind of Deming and Skagit races with 32 car. Riley did want to do dirt Skagit tune-up races to make sure we were set to go for that at Skagit, but it was really just a flexible schedule, starting with Jared stepping aside with the 32 car, and me kind of maintaining a half schedule with Riley and Richard. But yeah, I'd raced Deming for the first time, like a full season's worth. We had raced there a few times, kind of chasing the Summer Challenge Series points, where they'd have some point races up there, and we'd go there for 1 weekend out of the year. But yeah, this is kind of the first year running Deming as a full season, and split duties, obviously, between the two.
Does that get tough as a driver to go between two cars like that?
Not really. I'd say like the majority of, Focus midgets are all Triple X chassis with, a handful that aren't. So chassis are all really similar. Like I say, like the rules package is pretty standard. So obviously we're all running pretty much identical engines. So horsepower and momentum are very different kind of racing styles, and all the cars share the same power source. So, there's not that much different. It's really kind of more the relationships. So figuring out like what, Riley's and my base package is with him, and like what he kind of is able to offer with whether it be a shock package or kind of just stagger and whatnot, and what I kind of like for rich racetracks, and then kind of coordinating that with, the other car, and kind of fitting my driving style with their car and what they're used to. And we just kind of bounce ideas off each other, which is probably the main difference.
One of the things you also brought up was this was your first time running Deming for a full season. You had, done one-off races, and Deming and Skagit, two completely different tracks. What did you think of running Deming for a full season? Did it change your outlook compared to when it was just kind of hit and miss?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, like I said, I'd been to the racetrack. I've watched it. I've helped crew for my buddy Chance Crum over the course of years, gone to Clay Cup. So I've been a spectator of the track. But not ever really having a whole ton of laps there. So, like I said, when we were chasing Summer Challenge Championships with the Northwest Focus Midget Series, prior years, we had made some appearances there, but it was just one doubleheader weekend, pretty much on an annual basis. So running a full season there, I got to see more track conditions, a variety of either hooked up or slick, like it's, pretty much night in, night out at Deming, where it's on the fence or right on the inside berm. So that was really awesome. Learning the technicality of like proximity to racing is totally different, right? So, with Focus Midgets being a non-wing car with lower horsepower, generally, we're having to get a lot more sideways to make rotation, to make our lines work, and there's just not a lot of real estate at Deming. So like learning how to race really close in proximity, judging your speed differences. So like if you are running the top and you got to commit to either staying in the gas to get to somebody's outside so they see you, or, kind of bailing out and waiting for the next time. Like learning all that decision making was probably the biggest difference, where, if I just kind of went into the weekend in prior years just trying to hoping to survive versus, this year trying to actually get wins and run for podiums consistently and make race winning moves on a daily basis was the largest learning part.
I've talked to a lot of different guys throughout the podcast. Some guys, raced Deming in the micro and then made the transition to Skagit. And they always talked about, and now I know for you have a vast experience, but Deming always kind of taught them car control. Now, I'm sure you had car control, but is there anything that you learned at Deming maybe that was like, oh, even that could still apply to Skagit?
Yeah, racecraft, I'd say. Yeah, and when these guys say car control, right, it's just because, hitting your marks is much more important on a bull ring sometimes than a bigger real estate worth of track. So for me, yeah, car control is always something I tried to pride myself on, whether it's small track or big track. But racecraft decisions, I'd say just depending on the conditions of whether Skagit, materialized, a multi-groove racetrack for us, I would say like the racecraft decisions were pretty different. But yeah, like learning how to simple things like throwing sliders or, crossing over, or just learning how to really turn down off the wall and hit the bottom well and not just slide across it and then have the momentum just catch you in the middle of the slick or something. Like all of those things are more amplified at Deming. So like I'd say like the consequences of not hitting your marks or hitting moisture at Skagit are less consequential than Deming. But, when we're all pretty equal, hundreds turn into tenths and tenths turn into a second over the course of a race. So the discipline of hitting your marks at Deming does apply to discipline hitting your marks at Skagit, even though there just might be less consequences for failing to do so lap after lap.
All right. Well, joined again by Alex Peck, driver of a midget here at Skagit Speedway. And off the top, you had mentioned 2024 being a big year for you. You won the Skagit Speedway Track Championship. You won the Grace Harbor Track Championship. You won the Northwest Focus Midget Track Championship, all in that same year. What did it mean to you to get that done?
Yeah, it meant a lot just because I was really close even in 2023. So 2023 we won the series and we won Elma, and then we lost by 6 points against Jared for the Skagit Track Championship, and that came down to the final weekend. I think it was the Outlaws weekend still at that point, and we had 3 nights worth of racing. So, kind of went into there with a lead and tried to protect it, and ended up on the final night, Jared won and we got second, and that was enough for, like if I had won that race, we would have won the championship and he would have gotten second. So it came down to a position on the racetrack. So we were really close. We got 2 out of 3 in 2023. And I figured, we might have been running out of time to run all, the full schedule. And I know a lot of these guys are probably used to running 25, 35 shows a year. But, it's not that common for midget guys, just necessarily depending on where they're located. But I figured I'd probably running out of time. So I was happy to get it done, being able to get all 3 and just kind of like be satisfied with all of the different, championship and points racing achievements that I could get for this series and not having that pressure to keep going and have more fun with it like we did in 25.
No championship comes easy. They're all hard, but was there one that year that felt like it was the hardest to achieve?
Yeah, I'd say Skagit's just because, our series is naturally, a lot of people reside up north. So Skagit is, probably a home track for a lot of teams. So whether they don't travel to others, you get most car counts at Skagit. So your diversity and bigger driver pool go to Skagit. So, getting wins or good finishes is a little harder to come by there than it may be at other tracks. The competition's really even with Skagit too. So sometimes, track conditions yield really racy or sometimes they don't. So, finding positions is really kind of, can be hard to come by. But also just like the point system too differs from track to track. So some people value wins more. Like I think in Skagit, there's a 5-point drop off from first to second. So things like that really come into play. And so, everybody gives me a hard time for probably doing a lot of points racing math while I'm on the racetrack or in the pits or doing formatting in my head. So I know where I'm starting before the lineup happens, but, I feel like I'm really conscious of it because, if I have goals to try to win, I want to be really on top of it and myself. But I'd say Skagit was hard to win for some of those reasons that I mentioned.
You mentioned it. You kind of calculate points in your head. I feel like I've talked to different guys, and some guys, like the idea of chasing points and it doesn't stress them out. And other guys, they don't like to think about points. Are you a driver that always likes to think about points and likes chasing points? Or do you sometimes just like to go out there and race and the points fall where they fall?
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, I don't think I can help myself. So I don't think I can turn off the calculations when it's happening. But I'd say fortunately for me, most of the time, if you just race well, it will take care of yourself. So it doesn't really distract me from much. It's just more of an afterthought while it's happening. And I don't think it deters anything from results or causes extra stress or whatever, but it's just more like I feel like I'm an analytical guy, so it's just in my second nature to always have it in my mind.
Will you while you're driving, are you calculating points in your head at all?
Not really for a championship over the course of the season, but definitely for the format of the night, right? Yeah. So a lot of guys, some people have pretty standard formats. I think the limited sprints or 305s or sporties, they'll have it based off of what heat you're in, what finish you are, exactly what you're going to be, and the invert may or may not be determined at that point or whatnot. So I think a lot of guys, knowing if you're going to make an invert or not is in a lot of people's minds. So that can be just simple calculations, thinking about where you qualified, how many cars you're going to have to pass to get passing points or get in the invert. So you'll start maybe in a range. So that kind of determines if you're going to have a good night or not. I think a lot of people think that, and I definitely do for the course of a night, probably less for a championship, unless it's getting down to the final races of the year where you're kind of working backwards and knowing what results you need to have in order to get your achievement.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, the 2025 race season's done at Skagit, but your 2025 race season is still going to continue. I saw you had an exciting announcement on Facebook. You're running a non-wing car. Can we get into that a little bit? I'll let you kind of announce that.
Yeah. No, thanks for noticing that. I realized I hadn't posted it, but my first sprint car race is coming up. It's kind of a doozy for me. So I kind of always imagined my first time, running a higher horsepower open wheel dirt car would be at tracks that I have laps at. So something like Elma or Skagit or Cottage Grove or something, or Willamette. But this one, really nice, generous family, the Walkers. So Axel, Kippy, and Haley, kind of asked me if I would be interested in maybe putting some races together. They were really generous and kind of waiting for after, my scheduled season, concluded, so that I wouldn't be overlapping with any prior commitments. So I appreciate that generosity. And obviously with that comes, you have to follow the weather. So we're going to be racing at the pretty infamous and non-beginner racetrack of Tulare Thunderbowl with the USCS, the Ultimate Sprint Car Series. So, it's exciting. It's the Friday of the November 21st weekend. The following weekend is Ventura Turkey Night, which we're not going to be racing that one. But I did just see they came out with their list, and there's actually some pretty cool national guys that are racing that. But I'm recently learning about the series where I know they run like 360s and limited 410s to kind of have a comparable engine power package. But I don't know what the promoted list is for Friday at Tulare, but I do know they're having, I think, like 60 cars or something for Ventura. I don't know how much overlap that will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting, a little bit nerve wracking. It'll be a lot of firsts for me. So first time, obviously in a sprint car, first time at Tulare, even going there. I've never even spectated there. And then, first time with this family too. So a lot of firsts.
How did you meet this family? Is it a connection you've had for a while, or is it something that, just built kind of near the end of the season or whenever?
Yeah. So, Haley Walker takes photos. So she's kind of a media person where she'll get media, permissions to go to racetracks and either, if it's for high level events or if it's just for local races. So, I got connected through her, through my buddy Chance. He also runs Elevate Racing Media. It's another media company. So through that, I kind of got some pictures, got pictures of mine from Haley over the course of a couple of years. And she just happened to have, her dad have a family sprint car team too. So there was just a good opportunity that opened up, I think, with timing with them, with one of their prior drivers, just having a seat open, and they like to travel too. So I think they like to go, Southwest racing when they can, late in November or maybe early winter or late winter. So, that's my connection. But Haley's really nice and takes great photos.
Yeah, I've seen some of her photos. I was wondering if that was the same Haley Walker. I figured it was, but I wasn't fully sure, so that makes sense.
Yeah, Walker Imagery, I think,
Okay.
is her page if anyone wants to check that out.
Is it a non-wing 410 or 360?
So this one, it's a limited 410, I think.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably going to produce roughly the same power as a 360. So good for me that I'm not just stepping straight into 900, 950 horsepower, whatever. And so it's a limited. I'm not exactly sure on the engine package and what makes it, but it is a cross product series, which is really cool. Like that's how they're generating 60 cars at Ventura. Is they're just not deviating the series, or cutting it in half. And and so they figured out a really successful way to get car count.
What's going to be your approach to stepping into this car first time? How do you approach a new car like this?
Yeah. So far, my main approach is just a lot of YouTube research.
Okay.
Like onboard videos, flow racing videos. I'm trying to find, like anything I can see on how track conditions are for non-wing cars in November at Tulare. Right, we just watched Trophy Cup for wing cars. I think just it'll be different. So I'm not exactly sure what we'll get, but my approach obviously is try to just take one step at a time. My main goal is to just get invited back for another weekend, and not just this go poorly enough where I have one opportunity and that's pretty much it. So that's my main goal. So whatever I can do to help keep that alive by just having make clean, safe laps, be somewhat competitive, get some racing experience. whatnot. That's kind of my approach in general. But yeah, I was able to go to their house, early and get fitted. So, making sure we're comfortable is a big barrier for sitting in a new car, new family. Making sure that, the seat works, belts work, we fired it up, went through the whole process. So everything but, packing and hot lapping, qualifying, heat racing, that's all to be determined.
Is there any mentors that you're going to lean on for a little bit of advice leading into or during the night when you're racing the non-wing car?
Yeah. Chance Crum, Kevin Crum, they're like my racing family. Chance is, he's had quite the experience. So I'm pretty much just following him, about 8 years delayed, unfortunately. But so he raced Focus Midgets, then he raced, some wing 360s in the Northwest, moved to Indiana, raced, open midgets for a couple of years. Now they have a family non-wing 410 program too. So pretty much I'm skipping some of those steps that he had in between. And then, just much more, delayed in my racing experience than his. But yeah, he's my mentor. And simple things like, what is my steering wheel window? So like in a Focus Midget, we're not really getting that crossed up on the wheel. We're keeping it straight for momentum. But like, I'm going to have to get my, my mind and my arms a lot, more used to having to turn, a full rotation of the wheel. How much more sideways am I going to get? What does horsepower feel like? What is the, maybe the speed shock is something that I'm, thinking about a lot too, like just going mile an hour and having my brain process things coming at my eyes a lot quicker. So yeah, kind of using him as, a reference to how he transitioned from making a jump to jump. So yeah. But other than that, throughout the night, probably just going to have to, keep to myself, stay in my own head, just, have confidence that I can make clean, safe laps and build on from, session to session on the track.
Has he given you any advice yet? Have you talked to Chance?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of just mentioned what I just mentioned as far as like, just being confident in yourself and, being able to, like drive within your limits, right? Like, and I've level set with, the family, like, hey, this, is my first time, not trying to talk myself out of the ride at all, but, just saying like, I'm looking forward to having fun and having a smooth night. So depending on, obviously the car count and conditions and luck and whatnot, we'll just see how results go. But, yeah, main thing is just have fun.
Well, look forward to watching you. This is going to be fun. How did you meet Chance? You mentioned Chance, and are you guys pretty good friends? How did that friendship and mentorship kind of develop?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, Chance and I raced quarter midgets together, I think he started 2004 maybe or something. Okay. I started 2005. We didn't start racing each other in certain classes in quarter midgets until probably 2011, like late when we were in quarter midgets. He just probably advanced through the classes a little bit quicker, and maybe I was more, just built more experience and whatnot. But we ended up racing together, became really good pals, just running, region races together. So he's from, the Washington track, and I was from the Little Wheels track in Graham. So region races were our connections, our Grands events where you get to go to racetrack for a week and really, kill a lot of time in between racing and hang out with friends and stuff. So that's how we met. Through college, actually, we both went to UW, and then we actually were roommates together for the first year. So, had a whole different type of friendship there when you're kind of getting to be a young adult and sharing the same space and whatnot. And then we've just stayed close forever since. So, like his dad, Kevin, has been a really big mentor and supporter of me. They helped me get racing rides from whenever I stopped racing my own family car to get into dirt racing. They're big racing dirt fans, like the way we watch races or analyze, recap videos, talk about current events. Like we just, share the passion of racing together and have a really similar mindset and opinions on a lot of things.
So you brought up kind of your start of your career in 2005 and quarter midgets. And that's kind of another chapter of your career I want to dive into, because you didn't start in the dirt. You started pavement, and you went pavement for really till what, 2015-ish, give or take? You started dirt in 2019, right?
Yep.
So first, let's look at your quarter midget. I remember you joked when we did 10 questions that I think you said you peaked too soon because you won national titles in quarter midget racing.
Yep. Yeah. So started 2005. There was, in our region, there's 5 pavement tracks, and then there's one in Elma, the little quarter midget track just on the other side of the pit fence at Grace Harbor. So that was only a dirt track in a region, which was cool to get some dirt experience. But I think a lot of people obviously just hope to get out of that race alive if they're doing regional series, because the 5 other were, pavement tracks. So yeah, we raced club level, region level, national level. We were pretty fortunate actually towards the end of my quarter midget career that national, some of the Western Grands is what they were called. Those national events were in our region, so they were hosted at the Portland Club and the Washington Club, and one of them was actually in the Langley Club in British Columbia, just up north. So having some of that overlap, where like, you know, I was able to be probably peaking and ending the career in quarter midgets, getting experience and becoming like a veteran of kid racing, right? Mm-hmm. Having national events in your backyard was a big plus to have, you know, successful results and whatnot. So yeah, we were able to finish with 2 national titles. One was one in Portland, and we actually did a Winter Nationals event in in Vegas. Okay. They used to hold it at Prim, and they switched to Vegas, I think, just a few years before it went. But yeah, those are my 2 titles. And growing up, just a big NASCAR kid. Like, you'd watch it on TV. There's NASCAR guys that started quarter midgets like Jeff Gordon, mm-hmm. Joe Logano, et cetera. So it was a natural path to be like, this is where you start careers and this is where it ends. And a lot of kids are obviously ambitious, whether they're going to NBA or NFL. Like, our route was NASCAR. So mm-hmm. yeah, that's where the, you know, racing passion and started, and kind of where I thought, you know, I would end up down the line.
So did you ever really envision yourself going into dirt? Or did you always feel like you were going to stick in that pavement route, kind of like you said?
Yeah, I think just my skill set naturally was good at pavement racing, and that's just how, you know, you cut your teeth when you're 5, 6, 7, or whatever. Mm-hmm. You just learn smooth consistency, you know, repetitive actions like that. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any dirt tracks, I guess, near us. So some people that grew up, you know, right next to Skagit, that's the first inkling, you know, like when our proximity to us was some of these quarter midget pavement tracks. That's what, you know, you grew up with. But no, I didn't really become like a dirt fan until, honestly, like the I call them the crummies. They were racing Deming races. So like when they graduated from quarter midgets, they went up north to Deming. So they're racing Friday nights. From where I lived, that was not accessible to go to Friday night Deming races when you're, you know, in 8th grade, 9th grade or whatever. So, yeah. You know, through that, they became dirt fans even more so than they had already been. Like, you know, the crummies are anything racing fans, but mm-hmm. through that, you know, they started paying attention more, and they're, you know, bringing me on to it. And I just never really took to it until like probably 2016, when honestly that was my first dirt race I did for them one time, and I was in a Focus Midget, and I liked it a lot. Obviously, like, it felt like the race went by in like 2 seconds, and I felt a lot more energy after it, because some of the pavement racing I'm doing is, you know, it's like an hour long and it's hot. Yeah. And I get exhausted. I can't wait to get out of the car. But yeah, no, that's when I kind of got turned on to dirt racing, was just through them, you know, like showing me videos or going to races with them and just watching like the speed, watching the car control, honestly watching like multi-line racing. Mm-hmm. Like, in my opinion, was probably the trigger for me, like how this racing is just superior in the sense that drivers have control over their results. Like, you don't have to go through somebody. You can just go around them the further way around, or like the way a car like will come off the top already pretty much at like peak speed, mm-hmm. and a car is just tiptoeing the bottom, and then they just throttle up, and then their speed matches in like a half a second. Like, the amount of acceleration and grip from like that was also like exciting for me to watching like outlaw races or USAC races.
I was going to ask kind of what you thought of dirt. That's a really interesting aspect, because that is true. And pavement and dirt are so different. There's different aspects where it feels like pavement it's the long game, how you set yourself up, where dirt, you got to go quick. Is that kind of fair to say, you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You know, sprint cars are called, I think, what they are, because, you know, the race is balls to the wall and full throttle, and, you know, no hesitation. Right, you're right. Mm-hmm. I think pavement races are much more like chess matches, which, you know, I think they're respectable in their own right. Like, you know, you'll see guys that are transitioned from dirt to NASCAR because it may pay better, and that's the end game, is just to make money and a career out of it. But also, like, skill sets being transferred is not always seamless. Sometimes it is for guys like Kyle Larson or something, but mm-hmm. you know, there's other top tier like drivers, like, you know, Rico, or you saw Corey Day, you know, spend a good amount this year learning like racecraft and patience and like car control. So they're definitely respectable in their own right for, like, you know, how you set your car up for the long run, or how you're patient for the first 25 laps of a tire run because you're you let guys go and then they come back to you at the end, and then you have green flag pit stops or whatnot, or managing, cycles for competition cautions and stuff.
Yeah.
But
when you made that move from quarter midgets to was 2013, right? You bought or your family bought a 4-cylinder late model, right?
yes.
So
yeah.
and then ran it with the Northwest Pro Alliance series.
Yeah. So, late models was kind of the goal for a lot of kids that are getting, from small cars to just, full size cars.
Mm-hmm.
So late models varied between, an affordable 4-cylinder motor versus these, like 30 to 40 grand, 650 open V8s, right? That are super late model racing, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a transition step of, getting out of a car where like the kid is half the body weight of the whole thing versus, a 2,000 pound race car and learning all that things. So we had seen a lot of other quarter midget kids graduate from that into these 4-cylinder late models. Those were really successful series at the time, where pretty much just the straight feeder series from quarter midgets if you wanted to do late models. And so, some of the other racing families that we were close with at the time and still are to this day, like, we're transitioning to that. And so we just got on board, and we ran that for 3 years, which was really fun, big learning experience on like things just like how to manage your day. For example, like you need spotters and you need people to be able to put your car up on jack stands to take tires off, and you got to demount tires at the racetrack because you got to practice on a set, qualify on a set, race on a set, and figure it all out and take it all home with you. So all that stuff was really good learning experience. And a lot of times it was just me and my dad and maybe my mom too. So, it's funny, like some of the tracks where he has to help me in the pits and then run across, the racetrack to get in the grandstands to spot for me were definitely like, interesting moments. And like a lot of other teams had other people helping them. And that was just not able necessarily what we were able to do. So it was definitely fun and learning. And I learned a lot of skill sets, and I think matured a lot, learning how to race with adults too. Like, I think that's the biggest thing for some of these veterans that are guys that have raced, I don't know, for like 50 years, and they're worried about these kids that are coming out at 16, where, their racing experience is double the age of the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And they're worried that, the kid's going to come in with too much confidence and whatnot. So like my big thing was just earning respect of those drivers, just letting them know that like, hey, like you can trust me on, like, I'm one to hold my line. I'm not going to outdrive my limits. I'm going to learn. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to earn the respect so that they feel confident with me. And then potentially, as things progress, like you get faster and faster, you're going to want that respect if you're potentially racing, for wins with them. So
was that a big adjustment going from kind of racing your own age group to going to a series that had adults? I mean, you mentioned it, having to earn that respect. Is that something you found relatively easy because you are a clean driver, you can hold your lane, that they got that respect quickly for you, or did it still just take a while because you were young?
I think for me it was pretty quick, and I think that's just my personality. Like, I think growing up, even with quarter midget racing, like I love to like hang out with the parents a lot after races. So like, like if you see your parents having fun with other parents, you're having a good time with them, you hang out for extended amount of time, you just kind of mature a little bit to be maybe an older personality for your actual age. And so I think I just carried that into, racing with adults for the first time, and kind of priding myself on like saying, hey, I'm not going to be one that you need to worry about like maybe you have in the past. Just because like I had high ambitions of wanting to, be able to race with them for wins potentially soon. Like I needed that respect to start as soon as possible. So that was pretty much my approach. But I think you'll see that across the board. Like, for example, I know like when Galen and Carla were running, the Focus Midget Series, they had an age rule. They wanted, drivers to be of 18, or there was, for any exceptions, you needed to have a substantial amount of racing experience, right? And so I think that's really common across the board for, a lot of more grassroots series, not as professional. Like I know, you can be, 16, run 410s and whatnot nowadays, but for something maybe where it's more grassroots fans or grassroots drivers and teams that are really kind of, they have day jobs and they're running this for fun. Like you want to be able to protect their interests and not have a kid come in for a year and ruffle some feathers and then leave, and then you lose a series or something.
I really like what you say. I think that is true. That's about car control, and I think you are a driver who can do that and earning the respect. I think that's a good way to put it. I struggled when I was trying to look for stats. how did you do in those 3 years in the Northwest Pro Alliance Series?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we did okay.
Okay.
The thing that we really quickly learned was like equipment did get you a lot of speed. So like right off the bat, we bought a used race car. My dad and I were not mechanically inclined to like, once we bought it, we're like, okay, we're going to go through it. We're going to make these changes. We got experience. Also, I mean, side tangent, like I'm a first generation racer. So my dad doesn't have an experience, which I feel like a lot of racers today come through generations of experience. So their dads or grandpas or uncles or whatever are telling them pretty much exactly like what the expectation is, or they're helping them along with experience, like setup adjustments or even just mechanical, increases on the race cars and whatnot. So we didn't have that. So ours was all just learning. So we had I feel like we had a steeper learning curve. But yeah, like I think we were trying to just do it what was affordable for us at the same time, like being in high school, college was a focus for us to pay for. So we didn't want to just dump, tens of thousands of dollars in motor programs each year, or, run sticker tires every time we hit the racetrack. Right. So, we did pretty well. I think we were really consistent. Like I think I got as much speed out of our car and program as we could. And I think people could recognize that. Like, I think everybody's able to pretty much judge other people's equipment program. And like, if somebody's overachieving for what they got, like that's a respectable thing in its own right, rather than somebody who's just buying experience. Like there's people that are hiring crew chiefs to like say, hey, if I pay you $2,000 to come, just run this weekend for my kid, they might be trying to buy results that sense. Right. And so I think some people have different respect levels for like, figuring it out on your own and running your equipment the best you can. And so I guess there's different levels of how you look at it, but on paper, I'd say results wise, we did okay.
Okay.
We didn't get any wins or anything, but we had, I think, maybe a podium or two sometimes.
You compete, and if it's such a equipment based, it's hard to race against those top guys sometimes if you don't have that equipment. What?
For sure.
So you said you're a first gen racer. What made you want to get into racing?
Good question. So, I mean, growing up, I think my dad just liked NASCAR, so it was on TV.
Okay.
So just watching it like on Sundays with football, like Seahawks games and stuff. There was a January event like Monster Jam at the Tacoma Dome. My mom suggested that my dad take my brother and I to go watch Monster Jam because like what, I don't know, 2-year-old, 3-year-old kids don't love monster trucks. So we went early to get tickets, and there was quarter midgets running around as a promotional show. My dad's like, let's go find the promotional tent. We went there. They had a very attractable offer where you just go to the track the following Saturday for like $15, and you just get like, I don't know, 5-7 laps in somebody else's quarter midget. And so they obviously restrict the car down to like as low as it can, just idle speed. But we just did that, and it was pouring down rain, and we waited like 2 hours. But like when my brother and I did it, we just liked it. And I remember my first thought was just like getting in the car. I'm like, okay, all the NASCAR guys do is they make a circle out of this thing. So they go up to the wall and they go low in the turns. Like that's what they do every single weekend. So I just followed that, and then it seemed to come pretty easy. There are some other families that were selling race cars at their quarter midgets that their kids are outgrowing because they need new frames and stuff like that. So it's a good feeder method, right? It's a big promotional thing to keep families coming into the club, and we were the targeted audience. So we did it, and we just ended up keep doing it because you meet a lot of great families, a lot of great parents that have the best interests of their kids at heart. And so, yeah, you just gain family friends, and next thing you know, you want to keep coming back because you enjoy it so much.
Did your brother get hooked on it as much, or is it just you?
He did. He raced like 3 or 4 years. He's taller than I am, so he's like 6'3".
Oh, wow.
And obviously, racers, the smaller the better. So in quarter midgets, like when the taller he got, the harder it was to maintain speed because, like, if you get a higher center of gravity, you get tighter and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think he had interest, and he eventually just found more interest in the hanging out part necessarily than the racing part too. So that's honestly fell to my favor, right? So a lot of kids with quarter midgets try to get hopefully up to like 2 or 3 classes. So they have, multiple race cars, multiple engine packages, multiple opportunities for success in a given day. So that kind of fell my way, and that just kind of kept feeding, I'd say, the addiction to keep, succeeding and keep racing more and more and go, just rolling with it.
So when you then got out of pavement racing, was it 2015? I want to make sure I have that kind of timeline right in my head.
Yeah, so that was like my junior year of high school. My dad had unfortunately had an experience, like a mass layoff for an employer he was working for at the time. And then we just put things in priority. So like we knew, college was only a year away, and we just really didn't find it a smart decision to go spend, another couple, probably tens of thousands of dollars the next summer racing. And that would probably just go straight to tuition and housing for college. So that's when we stopped in 2015. And I'd say, 2016, 17, and 18, I had raced one time in each of those 3 years. So the first one was a Chance Crum opportunity to race a Focus Midget in 2016 at Skagit. 2017, I had raced another Pro 4, the Forcena late model, and that was for one of the teams that I had recently been competing against. He was out of town, and he obviously, I think, still respected my driving style, and so offered me to fill a seat for him. So that was a cool experience, 2 years after the fact. And then 2018, I ran one micro race at Deming. Those 2 dirt races were completely facilitated pretty much by my buddy Chance, and that was him to keep me interested in racing, like keep getting me to keep coming back to racetracks, watching as a fan, being either a crew guy for him or getting in the seat myself. And honestly, just really like he tried probably harder than I did to keep my racing career going, or my hobby or lifestyle going. Like I would say him and his dad, Kevin, were, my facilitators for the most part in those 3 years that I kind of had a gap. And so, that's why obviously, we're lifelong friends and family still.
Do you think if it wasn't for them, you maybe wouldn't be still racing now?
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
So what'd you major? You double majored, right?
Yeah. So school, I did a double major. So I did economics and environmental studies at the time.
Okay.
Was a pretty feasible option. There was a good amount of overlap, so I just figured to kind of broaden my education and see if I can increase my opportunity at getting a job, post school.
All through UW?
Yes. Yeah. UW in Seattle.
So what do you do now? Does it tie into what you got your degree in?
Yeah. Right now I'll say I'm an operations manager for like an investment management company. So I work in downtown Seattle on a hybrid schedule. But yeah, it's using I guess to answer your question directly, using my economics degree, kind of understanding like the financial investing world. But right now, I work for an operations team and kind of manage a team of about 25, 30 people, just overseeing, daily operations and for the company.
Oh, can you share what company at all?
It's called Parametric.
Okay.
It's Parametric Portfolio Associates. It's they're owned now by Morgan Stanley. But for the client relations group, it's a sub department at Parametric. That's I run a quality assurance team essentially.
Oh, okay.
Without going into I guess too much detail.
That sounds really cool. I see where you're tying with numbers and going back to when we were talking about points. You're very a number and mathematic guy, so I'm sure that ties in really well with your strong suits.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just kind of how my brain's been wired, and it's where I found success. And for this team, it's funny. Like when I was trying to find work after college and start a career, one day that would hopefully be able to yield enough income that I could maybe have my own race team one day, or for my kid or something, and down the line. But when I was looking for this, obviously some of my personality traits for just attention to detail, and most race teams have this, people can spot when a part failure happens and they have to dissect, hey, a car wasn't working. Was it the shock? Was it the bar? Was it the wheel? Was it whatever it was? And even maintenance programs, the attention to detail and repetition of having maintenance programs, is a skill set that everybody is kind of forced to do well if you want to have a good race team. And so for work, one of my things being quality assurance is just looking for things that are wrong. So it's almost just the same mindset that you apply to a race program for maintenance, you're just doing that for, a company with numbers and stuff. So
I like that. That's a comparison that I haven't heard often, but I feel like is really true of how that quality assurance in racing. That makes perfect sense with numbers and quality assurance in your job. That's really cool.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little bit different than some of the more hands-on skill sets that a lot of guys have, whether that's trade work or welding or whatnot. So, but yeah, I so I have a desk job, day job, so it works for me, but it helps keep me flexible too. So I can go races on Deming. So like being able to work remotely too sometimes is really strong advantage.
So where are you based out of? If you're working remotely, are you going to Seattle a lot, or are you not too?
Yeah, so I have a hybrid schedule, so I need to be in the downtown office a couple of days a week. So I currently live in Seattle, and I've lived here since going to school here, and I just haven't left it. And I'm generally from the area, so like my parents are in Federal Way, 30 miles south in between here and Tacoma. So it's all at home. Like all of my friends and family and work and racing are all centralized here, so it makes it easy too for like when I need to go to Deming or Skagit or Elma or Banks or Cottage Grove. Like this is kind of a central hub for me to go 2 hours north, 2 hours south, etc. So it works.
Yeah, well, that's even better if your employer allows you, because I know sometimes trying to find employers that allow you to go out and do those things is easier said than done. So if they allow you to, I don't know if you leave work early to get to Deming, but allow you that time to go to Deming and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the Deming thing, I mean, I'll just be candid. Like Justin Brester, he cruised for the 26 sprint car team, and he's friends through chance and whatnot over the years, and then I got to know him, and he flat out facilitated my Deming season. He lives in Linden, so on Fridays, if I am able to work remotely, I just drive, from Seattle up to Linden on a Thursday night, get there super late if it's 10 or 11 o'clock, set up my stuff, and I just work from his house on a Friday.
Wow.
And I get off roughly on time that I just go straight to the racetrack. So without me having to take, half days or full PTO days to get northbound on I-5 on a Friday, which is next to impossible, and get to the racetrack before 4, like it doesn't happen. So like I would have not been able to race probably any Deming races, or I would have done a lot less because they would have to come at the expense of, paid time off.
Yeah.
So yeah, Justin Brester completely facilitated my Deming season this year, and it would not have happened without him.
That's really cool. Racing is such a big community, and different people helping everyone out to be able to achieve that common goal of getting to the racetrack and going to race Friday, Saturday, whatever night it'll be. So that's cool to hear. I like that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's related around racing. So like if guys jump cars, and some people need to go run parts up and down from Triple X or whatever up and down the road. That's one way. But, for me, it was not having to use vacation for my day job. So like, yeah, you're right. It is. There's a lot of different ways that people can help others, race, and that is very cool.
Anything still on your bucket list for your racing career? Whether it's, I don't know, do you ever see yourself going back and doing a pavement race, or fully a bucket list of dirt?
Yeah, there's a lot. I probably haven't actually really gotten off the ground floor as much as I'd like. Racing. Pretty much, I would say it's diverse because of the pavement and dirt thing, but dirt-wise, it is pretty concentrated to just focus midget racing. So, yeah, the upcoming race at Tulare is a big bucket list item. Like racing just a big horsepower car will be the first time like ever for me. Like I never got north of 300 horsepower, so this is exciting and fun. I would obviously love to run sprint cars at local tracks too, like Skagit and Elma, and whether that's winged or non-winged. I know non-winged doesn't really come around that much. At Skagit. But yeah, running wing sprint races would be on my bucket list. Far-fetched would be, I'd love to still run a super late model pavement race.
Yeah.
Like, you see a lot of that. Like I said, there's a lot of TRD midget drivers that are transitioning to NASCAR, and the first thing they have to do is go run either a cars tour race or a super late model race, and then they get into ARCA, and then they get into trucks if it's all worth paying for. But if I could somehow get a super late model race where I could get big horsepower with whatever my blood is developed in, or what my it's in my DNA to be a pavement kid, because that's where I grew up. Like I would still love to feel that, like I wanted to and anticipated doing over 15 years ago when I was a kid. So but yeah, I think those are some of my immediate bucket list items. Obviously, like if those are accomplished, then the bucket list just keeps growing. But those are some of my near ones.
Do you have a favorite track, whether it was back in your pavement days or your dirt tracking days now?
Yeah, Wenatchee for pavement,
Okay.
and then Cottage Grove for dirt. I like if I had property, I don't know, like 30 acres or something, and could cut a racetrack, I would just go to Cottage Grove and say, "Can I have your dimensions? I just want to make this at a new address." That's literally what I would do. I love the banking, the proportions, all of it's super, super like to my driving style, and I think it's exciting too. So yeah, those are my two.
What was it that you liked about the pavement track?
I like Wenatchee's banking. It's a really fast quarter mile, just kind of like Cottage Grove, but it's got good banking. Wenatchee has a beautiful sunset, so it's, within the Cascade Mountain range. So like when you go there, some photographers like to, position themselves so they get a beautiful backdrop of the Cascade Mountain range. And it like, if you were to show that to like an out of towner, they might think you're racing in like Alaska or Montana. Like it's still it's really scenic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really well built facility for the size and whatnot too. And so, Wenatchee is really for how the track races and kind of the facility and scenicness of it. And then Cottage Grove is really just purely the racetrack. But I would say Skagit is an absolute pleasure to go to facility wise. Like the amount of facility growth that Kevin and Monica and John have done over the last few years have been like the most professional growth that I think you could do for what used to be or known to be like a very local racetrack. So like it's on the national stage. Like I'm assuming the goal is to get it on a national, well known on a national scale, like tracks in Pennsylvania or tracks in Ohio that we all know and have crown jewel events at. And I think they have gotten there so quickly that it is really impressive to see. So yeah, the facility at Skagit and the race product that it produces with 410 sprint cars now is really like second to none.
Where do you see your 2026 plans for tying into Skagit Speedway? Do you think you'll be back in a midget, or are you trying to explore to get into a winged car of some sorts?
Yeah, I think it's more of the same. So I think if I could just pick, I'd probably have, kind of a part-time schedule, probably not points race anything. Depending on how the sprint car thing goes, like I would hopefully like to maybe race some of those races more in the summer if they're, kind of either close, or if they're in Oregon, like I know Willamette will have non-wing sprint cars sometimes too. So depending on that, I have a lot to figure out, but I'd hope for more of the same. Like I really enjoyed not points racing this year, really enjoyed like going around and picking weekends that work for me, work for my car owners, matching our goals to making sure they're aligned and whatnot. And if I could do that, I would just have more of the same.
Do you think it'll still be between Pyles and Inlaws racing?
Yeah, to my knowledge, yes. I mean, we still have to obviously talk through it. Schedules usually get made and released, come December, January time. So that's usually when, plans are more solidified, is when we see what weekends align with people and goals and off-season maintenance stuff too, right? Like, people have things happen over the winter where they're like, hey, we're not going to be ready for the first part or something, and then you got to go find time somewhere else in the spring. So it all depends. But usually we'll hopefully get it solidified more when the schedules are released.
So what you kind of bring that up. What does your off season look like? Of course, you're going to go race in November, but when there's kind of a lack of racing, what are you doing to prepare for 2026?
Not a lot. So I recently took up skiing, so that's like my other lifestyle hobby now.
I wanted to ask you about that. Okay.
Yeah, I like to use the Cascade Mountain Range a lot. So whether that's Crystal or Snoqualmie or Stevens Pass or whatever. That's kind of my like personal achievement hobby now, is to get better at skiing. Last year, the Crummies invited me to Chili Bowl, so that was kind of a bucket list spectator event. So last January, nothing to do with racing preparedness, more just racing fandom.
I mean,
so went to Chili Bowl.
But I don't blame you for going to Chili Bowl. Like that's
sweet. Yeah, but other than that, not really. I don't really have much preparation. If anything, like maybe I try. Like it depends on the time. Like a few winters ago, I needed some new suits, so make some phone calls, try to get your equipment prepared. Whether that's buying a new helmet, getting a helmet painted, getting a custom suit made, stuff like that. Like really just driver related things, or making sure I'm prepared to be hired for an opportunity in case it comes around. When there's some things that I still need to do, like getting, my own seat potentially. People might laugh that I don't have my own seat yet, but hasn't really crossed that bridge yet. But there's just things like that I think I do just to make sure I'm eligible for an opportunity if it comes up.
You mentioned the skiing part. I wanted to ask you, is this like picked up as in like less than a year, or has it been a couple of years now that you've been kind of doing this hobby?
Yeah, no, 2 years. So
okay.
I started, like, my first attempt at, I'd say, getting like 7 or 8 days in a season was 2023 to 2024 winter.
Okay.
And then 24 to 25 winter, I got an Icon pass, so I went to Crystal like 12 days or whatever. So we have some family friends, or I have some family friends that live in Enumclaw, so I just overstay my welcome down there and wake up close to that resort and just try to make as much fun out of it as I can and keep myself, busy during weekends for the winter.
Skiing and snowboarding is something I always thought looked fun, but never got into. What made you get into it? Just a new hobby?
For me, it's like when I want to try it because it just looks blissful. Like the experience is fun, going to a mountain where there's just almost paradise, right? Like it's similar where people go to lakes in the summer or beaches in the summer. It's aesthetically pleasing. But two, like, I'm obviously a competitive person, anybody that races is, but also like self-competition about improving yourself is always something that I like to do. And I feel like a lot of people like to golf right now. Like a lot of guys, once they're getting into their 20s and 30s, love golfing.
Mm-hmm.
Same reason. It's aesthetically beautiful to go to golf courses. You challenge yourself to get better and better. It's the same thing for me. And when you go there and you see, like, there's people that are skiing, like, still in their 50s, 60s, 70s, I'm like, that would be awesome to keep myself active at that time, so I better start learning now. And I think people do the same thing with golf. Like, you can golf to your 70, 80, whatever. Get good now. So that's kind of my approach, is just to start, because you kind of have the financial means once you get a job to start affording another expensive hobby, right? Like, it's funny. I think everybody thinks skiing or golf is the most expensive hobby. And I'm like, yeah, well, you don't know the racing bunch, do you? So.
Yeah, for sure. Racing budgets can blow skiing and golf out of the water for sure.
For sure. Yeah. We're getting, new tires every night is the same thing as getting a new set of skis every day. Not once a year, 2 times, or every 2 years or something. It's, new equipment every time you go to the mountain. Equivalent.
Have you felt like skills you've learned in racing have translated to helping you pick up skiing?
No, other than just like stubbornness to get better.
Okay.
Probably, just like an obsession is probably the parallel. Like if I'm obsessed with racing and the hobby and the lifestyle of it, and, making sure I'm getting better at it, same thing. It's just more of an obsession base, but so it's probably just all mental, nothing other than that, I think.
Well, I would love to keep talking, but I know you're working too, and I don't want to take any more of your time. We're closing in on an hour. So Alex, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really fun, and I've definitely learned a lot more about your career, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. No, this was a blast. Appreciate it. Thanks for, letting me chit-chat my butt off and letting me have this really nice break from my workday. So hopefully everybody enjoys listening, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Alex, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you later. Well, a big thank you to Alex for joining me today on today's edition of On the Gas, the Skagit Speedway Podcast. A really fun conversation with him, really covering his dirt career, his pavement career. He's skiing now, a little bit of what he does for work. So big thank you to Alex Peck, and look forward to seeing him back here at Skagit Speedway for the 2026 season. But the off-season continues to roll along right now, but don't you fret. We'll be racing really before you know it, because, heck, it's almost the middle of November anyways, and then our schedule will be coming out in the next couple months, and then at that time it's just going to be starting to ramp up for 2026, something we're still doing. Blake Anderson will hopefully be back with me next weekend. We'll have more fun guests on the Gas, a Skagit Speedway podcast, so don't fret. The podcast will continue to go along, but also follow Skagit Speedway on all social medias. Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all at Skagit Speedway. Follow us on YouTube as well. Rolling out a whole bunch of old Skagit Speedway archive races. Now we've got a whole bunch recorded, making shorts, getting a whole bunch of stuff and content out for you race fans. So we really do appreciate your support, and we'll keep pumping stuff out. Just because the off season doesn't mean that we can't keep racing content in your feed. So we appreciate you following along anywhere that you do and any way that you follow Skagit Speedway. And thank you for listening to this week's edition of On the Gas, a Skagit Speedway podcast. We'll talk to you next week. Take care, everyone.